Hi, this video is intended to introduce you to the OtoSim 1.2 software and some of the functionality. The screen that you see now is the starting location that one would start on a laptop. After having loaded the software one time, you will have this small icon on your desktop, which by clicking on this icon, you will load up the OtoSim program. The OtoSim program comes in through this introductory screen. I'm going to drag and drop it over to the left to make a bit of space and press on Enter here. This is your table of contents page, or the real home page that we'll be returning to a number of times during the talk. And I'll walk quickly through sections 1 through 7 and show you what's there. The introductory section has 3 topics. You'll notice there's a button at the bottom for table of contents. That'll take me back to the table of contents. And again, by clicking on one, back to the introduction. Just wanted to give you a quick introduction to some of the visual perception tests. So here, the instructor is given some information, but by clicking on this image, a second window will open up. And this is the student window. So this window here on the right-hand side is what the student will be seeing. And obviously with this, one would want to confirm that the student can read multiple lines down. If you can't read down 4 or 5 or 6 lines, you're probably not using the otoscope right, or have some sort of visual issue that you want to deal with first. Some other tests that are available include a test to see if you can perceive the difference between a 3-dimensional shape and a 2-dimensional shape. 3-dimensional shape and a 2-dimensional shape. And again, some people will have difficulty extrapolating, which could give rise to difficulty in looking at a tympanic membrane and extrapolating into 3 dimensions. The other thing you can check for is whether the student is colorblind. And there are a series of other tests. Take you back to the chapter index and then back to the table of contents. The real core of the program is sections 2 and 3, which present external auditory canal and middle ear pathologies. So here there are 21 chapters, and for instance I'll pick chronic otitis externa, and I'll see that there are 13 pages of text and images, and by clicking on this image and pulling the student window over to the right, the student will see this image, and wherever I put my arrow, the student will see that. I can also highlight things by clicking, for instance, on this box here. I then have a drawing tool that allows me to highlight different areas I might want the student to look at. There's alternatively another box with circle in it that allows you to highlight in a different fashion where you might want the student to look. So these drawing tools are useful for highlighting different features to the student, and by right-clicking I can remove the markups. I can also remove the markups by just changing page. So for instance, in this otitis externa, there are 13 different pages, each of which will have different images and or histology slides that one can present to the student via the OtoSim unit. Once again, off on the right, what the student sees, off on the left, what the instructor sees. As you see, when I get to the 13th page and continue forward, it takes me back to the index. I could also now get back to the table of contents by pressing on the bottom bar. Middle ear, very similar story, 22 chapters of middle ear pathologies, and I won't go through those in detail. Pneumatic otoscopy is a new feature added in the 1.2 release. In this case, one can play a video to the students by simply pressing on that arrow, and you can see the effect of palpitating the tympanic membrane and its mobility. In future releases, there'll be additional features, but at this level, there are simply 2 videos which will loop repetitively for the students to inspect. Again, I can go back to the chapter index by hitting the forward arrow or the chapter index button, and then back to the table of contents. Section 5 is 2 parts. It's simply all the images in 2 and 3 without the text or histology slides. So it is just ear canals with a small annotation below them. So I'll just show you for the otitis externa, again, simply the images with the underlying. You want to pull one of those images up for the student, you simply open the student window and again drag it over the right. You can point or mark anything up that you'd like to show to the student. Again, when I get to the end of a chapter, if I hit the forward arrow, I'll be back to the chapter index, and again, by hitting table of contents, back to the table of contents. The library part 2, again, similar sets of images. We've also added in the 1.2 release a specialist otology section. There's just one section at the present time, and it's an entire chapter on retraction pockets. The images coming from Dr. Adrian James at the Hospital for Sick Children. Again, 34 pages, including diagrams and images. All of the images, of course, can be pulled up on the student screen and then highlighted to show different sorts of features. So again, back to the chapter index and back to the table of contents. The final section is the self-assessment. These are essentially a set of test slides. So there are 2 sets of 14 slides which represent different pathologies, useful to walk the students through to check their breadth of understanding. Couple of features. I pulled up the first slide and brought it over in the student viewing image. Should the student wish to test themselves, the answer is not displayed until one hits the drawdown. This first image, of course, a normal tympanic membrane. So normal tympanic membrane is the answer. The second one, otitis externa. The third one, a big chunk of cerumen. And again, by moving in the student field, you can bring things to the student's attention via the OtoSim units. And again, there's another set of a number of images, including here aspergillus, foreign bodies, sand and pebbles from the beach, and various other pathologies. And by hitting on the 14th image, I'm back to the chapter index, and by table of contents, back to the table of contents. So that gives you a bit of a review of the different sections in the 1.2 release of the OtoSim software. There will be ongoing releases adding content, as well as different locked down sets of images and curriculum suggestions. Please feel free to get back to us with any questions or comments at www.otosim.com. Thank you.